Area and perimeter. This is something that always comes up in Year 6 papers, and it's also something that people get confused about. So what is area? Well, the area is the amount of surface a two-dimensional shape covers, and the answer is always given in squared units. We'll be having a look at the area of rectangles and the area of triangles. So how do you find the area of a rectangle? Well, the area of a rectangle is the length times the width. And the area of a triangle is half the base times the height. Looking at perimeter, the perimeter is the total distance around the outside of a two-dimensional shape, and you calculate this by adding together all the lengths of the shape. So for a rectangle, the perimeter is twice the length plus twice the width. And for the perimeter of a triangle, you add up all three sides. P equals A plus B plus C. Let's have a look at the area and perimeter of some rectangles. Let's remind ourselves what area is. An area is the amount of surface a two-dimensional shape covers, and that our answer must always be in squared units. And the area is the length times the width. Looking at the top rectangle there, we can see that the length is 10 centimeters and the width is 5 centimeters. We remember that to find the area, the blue bit in the middle, we multiply the 5 times the 10. 5 times the 10 equals 50. And we also remember that our answer must be in squared units, and in this case the units are centimeters. And so our answer for that one is 50 centimeters squared. Below it is a square, and in this case a square is part of the rectangle family. I'll explain a bit about that later. The sides of the square are 3 centimeters. So 3 times 3 equals 9. So the answer is 9 centimeters squared. Actually, every square is a rectangle, since the angles in a square are always right angles. That's more than saying that a square can be a rectangle, because it is one. And since squares are rectangles, you know that some rectangles are squares, namely, the squares are. I hope that doesn't confuse you. Let's look at perimeter. Let's remind ourselves what the perimeter is, and the perimeter is the total distance around the outside of a two-dimensional shape. And you can calculate it by adding together all the lengths of a shape. There we go. There's the 4 sides of that rectangle at the top. And our perimeter is twice the length plus twice the width. And to remind ourselves, the length is 10 centimeters and the width is 5 centimeters. So twice 5 is 10 and twice 10 is 20. 10 plus 20 is 30 centimeters. So our answer is 30 centimeters. And the same with the square. 4 threes are 12 centimeters. And here's a little reminder again that actually every square is a rectangle. Let's have a look at triangles. The area, and I'm going to remind you again that the area is the amount of surface a two-dimensional shape covers, and the answer is always in squared units, even with triangles. And for a triangle, the area is half the base times the height. Let's have a look at the right-angled triangle on the right there. That is the base down the bottom, and the height, as you can see, goes from the bottom straight to the top there. Our base is 8 centimeters and our height is 6 centimeters. So a half times 8 times 6 equals 24. Our units are centimeters, and as I said before, our answer for area must be squared. So the answer is 24 centimeters squared. With the small triangle on the top left-hand corner, the base is there and the height is there. And in this case, our base is 3 centimeters and our height is 2 centimeters. So applying the equation, a half base times height, a half times 3 times 2, well, a half times 3 is 1.5, and 1.5 times 2 is 3 centimeters. And again, our answer must be squared, so the answer is 3 centimeters squared. Let's have a look at perimeter. Reminding ourselves that the perimeter is the total distance around the outside of a two-dimensional shape, and you calculate this by adding together all the lengths of a shape. That's P equals A plus B plus C. So let's have a look at all three sides. There's the first side, the second side, and the third side. First side is 8 centimeters, the second side is 6 centimeters, and the third side is 10 centimeters. You add them all together and you get the answer 24 centimeters. Let's have a look at some problems. Some of the problems are with combined shapes. You get rather strange looking shapes, but if you look carefully you can actually divide them up between a rectangle and a triangle. Now the dimensions of this shape are those. And if you have a look carefully, you could see that you could divide that shape up into a triangle on top and a rectangle down below. And what you do is divide them up and find the area of them separately and then add them together. So have a look at the rectangle first. Here we've got a length of 6 centimeters and a width of 4 centimeters. Timing them together, we'll get an area of 24 centimeters squared. Now we'll get the area of the triangle. And if you have a look at the triangle, it's got a base on the right hand side of 6 centimeters, but it doesn't go right across. So we have to incorporate the 4 centimeters at the top. We know it's 4 centimeters because if we have a look down on the rectangle below, that width is 4 centimeters. So the base of that triangle is going to be the 6 centimeters on the right hand side plus the 4 centimeters, which makes 10 centimeters. And our height of the triangle, as you can see on the left hand side, is 3 centimeters. So the area of a triangle is going to be half times 30, which is 10 times 3, which equals eventually 15 centimeters squared. And so we'll add those two together, the 24 and the 15, and the area of the whole shape will then be 39 centimeters squared. Some of the problems are to do with borders. That blue rectangle represents a carpet, and the white border going around it represents the room that the carpet is in. The room's width is 6 meters and its length is 8 meters, and the carpet's width is 5 meters and its length is 6 meters. Our question is, a room is 8 meters long and 6 meters wide. In the middle is a carpet 5 meters wide and 6 meters long. What area has no carpet? That's that bit between the blue rectangle and the white border. Well, the white border represents the room, and the room is 8 meters long and 6 meters wide. And so to find the area of that room, we'll multiply them together, and we get the answer 48 meters squared. The carpet is 6 meters long and 5 meters wide, and therefore its area is 30 meters squared. So to find the uncarpeted bit, we take away the 30 meters, that's the area of the carpet, from 48 meters, which is the area of the room. And 48 minus 30 gives us 18 meters squared. So the area of uncarpeted is 18 meters squared. Here is another problem. A farmer has 100 sheep, and every sheep needs 1 meter squared of field on which to graze. He wants to make a rectangular field using the smallest amount of fencing possible. What dimension should he use? Well, 100 sheep at 1 meter squared would mean that he needs a field of 100 meters squared. So we have to work out What factor pairs make 100? And we know that those are 1 times 100, 2 times 50, 4 times 25, 5 times 20, and 10 times 10. Our next problem is to now make perimeters out of those factor pairs. And if we put them all together, if we had a perimeter where one part was 1 meter and the other part was 100, if we worked out the perimeter there, we would get a perimeter of 202 meters. If it was 2 and 50, our perimeter would end up being 104 meters. 4 and 25, the perimeter would be 58 meters. 5 and 20, the perimeter would be 50 meters. And finally, if we use a square, remembering that a square is a rectangle, if we had a square 10 by 10, the perimeter would be 40. So taking the smallest one there, which is 40, the dimensions of the farmer's field would have to be 10 times 10 meters. And remembering, since all squares are rectangles, you know that some rectangles are squares, namely the squares are. Finally, since we've been talking about fields and large areas, I'd like to have a look at hectares and squared kilometers. The area of a large piece of land is measured in hectares. And a hectare is the same as 10,000 meters squared. A hectare, of course, does not need to be a square. It may be any shape whose area is 10,000 meters squared. Now, if you want a very large piece of land, these large areas are measured in squared kilometers. And 1 kilometer squared is equal to 1 kilometer times 1 kilometer. And again, 1 kilometer squared, of course, does not need to be a square. It may be any shape whose area is 1 kilometer squared.